Na kwingineko, Rais William Ruto amesema kuwa soko la mikopo ya kaboni linafaa kuweza kunufaisha jamii zinazopambana na athari mbaya za mabadiliko ya hali ya anga. Ruto amesema kuwa Kenya tayari inaongoza katika uzalishaji wa mikopo ya kaboni barani Afrika, ikichukua zaidi ya 20% ya ujazo wa bara hilo ama bara Afrika katika kipindi cha miaka 5 iliyopita. Rais alibainisha kuwa sherehe ya mapato kuna sehemu ya mapato kwa ajili ya kuweza kufadhili upishi wa utengenezaji safi wa gesi pia inaendelea. Rais aliyasema haya alipokuwa kule Misri katika kongamano hilo.
Failure to redeem these pledges therefore implicates the leadership of the developed countries of negligence with dire humanitarian consequences. This is an action moment, a financial moment, and a moral moment for global leadership. We must rise to meet it without flinching. It is in this spirit that I therefore call for the speedy capitalization of existing climate finance mechanisms, that is both under the Convention and Paris Agreement. I also call for the development of innovative modalities to mobilize additional climate financing. The operationalization of carbon markets under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement would go a long way in this respect. Finally, I emphasize the need for funding under these frameworks to be adequate, timely, and accessible in order to be effective. Successful adaptation is not about making incremental or piecemeal investments. Rather, it is about understanding, intending, and doing development differently. UNEP's Emission Gap Report 2022 corroborates and confirms that given insufficient current efforts, warming will further rise to 2.8%, and we are staring at a runaway warming effect whose consequences will certainly be unforgiving. The gravity of the matter cannot be overstated. Our global situation is dire. We must mobilize to do the right thing as a matter of urgency. There is no more room to ignore, evade, or delay calls for substantial cuts in emissions, especially by the big emitters. Unless significant emission reduction is achieved rapidly, the adaptation gap continues to widen. In the last 12 months, since COP26 in Glasgow, extreme weather records have been broken on every continent, from the worst drought in 40 years currently ravaging the Horn of Africa, including Kenya, to the devastating floods that hit Pakistan and more recently Nigeria, and the worst European drought in 500 years, heat waves, wildfires in many parts of the globe. The climate finance remains the single most critical enabler in unlocking climate action and especially addressing adaptation in vulnerable communities of the global south. Between 2019 and 2020, a total of $11.4 billion has been made available to Africa for adaptation against an estimated need of $579 billion in adaptation investment by 2030. Clearly, this level of financing falls far. My elder brother, the President of Senegal, for putting together this AAAP that is providing a framework for adaptation and mitigating the effects of climate change, which has emerged as one of the greatest threats to life on Earth. It is also a serious challenge to human well-being globally, with particular intensity in the African continent. The sixth assessment report of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, published in 2021, has singled out Africa as singularly vulnerable to climate change and weather extremes. Such vulnerability poses serious adverse repercussions for Africa's precarious socio-economic systems, even though the continent's countries cumulatively contribute only 4%, of average global emissions. It is imperative that urgent measures be taken to effectively cushion Africa's people, their livelihoods, economies, and communities, and rapidly eradicate vulnerability. It is for this reason that accelerating adaptation is a matter of high priority throughout Africa. The escalation of global warming is worsening climate impacts, putting our countries at risk of adaptation limits being quickly overwhelmed, leading to unbearable loss and damage. Every slight increase in warming has far-reaching and often irreversible negative effects.